Chapter 136, the Shibuya arc ends. Awesome arc, 10 out of 10, but there's a problem. Here's a picture of the villain side at the start of the arc and here's the same picture at the end of it. For a shonen famous for its fights, having all of the disaster curses get dogged during the incident could prove to be problematic. But no worries, Kenjaku already teased the next big arc, and 22 chapters later we meet a new big baddie, Hajime Kashimo. We first meet him standing over some corpse and oh, he's handsome. His design is sleek and looking at his little ponytails we get a hint at what his technique could be. His demeanor gives us the notion that he's not like the average sorcerer, which quickly gets solidified when we learn that he's looking to fight Sukuna. And in just a few panels, the fandom was hooked. A bit of context. The next big arc following the Shibuya incident is called the Culling Game, an epic battle royale hosted by Kenjaku. Why did he make this? Well, he wants to conduct a ritual to combine humanity with tension, and for this ritual he needs a lot of cursed energy. The way he gets this energy is by sapping it from the players in the Culling Game whenever they use it. Now, there are two types of players. Those who recently became sorcerers, and sorcerers who reincarnated so they can once again do what they love. Considering Kashimo's general aura for bloodlust and the fact that he's looking to fight Sukuna, it was safe to assume that Kashimo was one of those reincarnated sorcerers. You may be wondering, well, what does any of this have to do with the main cast? Well, I'll quickly explain to you. There are two reasons for the gang to participate in the Culling Game. First, Megumi's sister, Tsumiki, is listed as a participant of the game, and if you read the rules you realize that she will die if she doesn't play. Second, when the gang meets tension, they learn that she conveniently has a backdoor to the prison realm. One of the reincarnated players has a curse technique that can nullify other curse techniques, so if they can recruit her they can free Gojo. This is what the gang looks like at this time. See this guy? Well, that's a expelled 3rd year Hakari. You'll learn more about him later. What you do need to know is that they want to take over the Battle Royale in order to achieve those two goals and to get a better idea of what Kenjaku's plan is. To do that, they want to take advantage of the rule system of the Culling Game, where they can trade 100 points to add a rule. How do they get points? Well, here's Kashimo to explain it.
5 points have been added.
Of course, I got points. I killed him.
Remember Kashimo's introduction? The reason we cut to him is because he introduced a new rule. That rule being the disclosure of all players' locations and general stats. The gang uses this rule to find sorcerers with enough points to make another rule, and they split up and set off to their chosen colony, with Hakari going to face Kashimo, who still has enough points for a rule. We are now in the Culling Games. Yuji and Megumi get their chance to shine, but the arc really kicks it up a notch when the real protagonist appears. We get a 7 chapter long 3-man free-for-all with the best choreography since Yuji vs Mahito. Given that these two didn't even receive an introduction and still delivered such an amazing fight, made my anticipation for Kashimo grow even more. And finally we switch to Kashimo's colony, where we find Hakari bullying some random failed manga artist. Yeah, this fight serves one purpose, and that's to introduce Hakari's curse technique. So when Hakari expands his domain we get the following explanation. Yeah, I feel the same way, Charles. Okay, let's make this quick. The domain is based on a Japanese gambling game called Pachinko. Basically, the domain plays a little scenario, and if a certain result is reached, Hakari goes into jackpot mode. The domain will loop over and over again until either jackpot is reached or Hakari dies. So Hakari plays around with Charles until he wins jackpot, and we switch to Panda. And finally, after 26 chapters we meet this beautiful man again, and he does not disappoint. Panda is so shook that he pretends to be a real panda, but that front doesn't last long. Kashimo fucking annihilates this poor animal and it's confirmed that he has the power of electricity. Panda tries his best, but honestly he never stood a chance, and when he resorts to his final transformation we learn that Kashimo's ultimate ability is a lightning bolt. Because his curse energy works like electricity, once he's rubbed his body on his opponent enough, he can send an electric discharge at him, meaning he has a sure hit attack that doesn't require a domain. The message is clear. Kashimo's got that dog in him. Before he can finish him off, however, Hakari, overflowing with cursed energy, joins the battle. The stage for what could potentially be one of the best fights of the series has been set. Hakari wastes no time and punches Kashimo into another dimension. Kashimo takes it though and notes how Hakari isn't at all moved by his electricity. We know that Hakari won jackpot, so at this point we can assume that this massive cursed energy reservoir is a reward for it. They trade names and Kashimo promises to give Hakari his points should he win, and Hakari, mid-conversation I mind you, fucking nuts. Kashimo takes the opening to go on the attack, but Hakari simply shrugs it off and sends Kashimo flying again. Also, look at this pose. They have a little exchange again, but Kashimo hops away after rubbing all over Hakari and then discharges his load on him. Though Hakari loses an arm, he manages to fight back for a little longer, but surely the fight is basically over at this point. So Kashimo, thinking the same, prepares his next move. until he gets zagged in the face by the same arm he just blew off. And when Hakari casts his domain, his powers get explained. When he hits jackpot, for 4 minutes and 11 seconds a limited cursed energy flows through him. But what makes this even more effective is that while jackpot is running, his body reflexively uses reverse curse technique to heal Hakari. As the narrator puts it, for 4 minutes and 11 seconds, this man is as good as immortal. And if that wasn't saucy enough, because of his automatic RCT, he can spam domain expansion again and again for as long as he hits jackpot. Next chapter we're in Hakari's domain again, and Kashimo gets sure hit with the rules. These two adrenaline junkies go at each other again, and while Kashimo is seemingly getting the upper hand in the exchanges, Hakari is lucky enough to get an immediate jackpot. Don't ask me why. Again, Hakari is immortal. However, now that Kashimo knows the rules, he knows that the next domain expansion won't be a guaranteed jackpot. So if he survives for another 4 minutes, he can turn up the heat and kill Hakari. But this man, immediately after coming to this conclusion, thinks to himself, but that's how losers think. Both of them flex at each other, Kashimo drops this line, and Kashimo declares that he's going to kill Hakari despite being immortal. The chapter ends with Kenjaku visiting old Kashimo in the middle of his latest bloodbath. We learn that despite his old age, he was still looking for strong people to fight, and he was actually looking for Ryu, who Yuta beat. But he realizes that he probably won't make it there in time, so he agrees to participate in the culling game, so that he can fight Sukuna. Next chapter and Hakari and Kashimo are still going at each other. Despite Hakari clearly packing the stronger punch, Kashimo is gaining momentum and it's clear that he's simply the better fighter of the two. He skins Hakari's face and we learn from him that the headshot will instantly kill Hakari, no matter how much RCT he has. He discharges all over Hakari, but Hakari sneezes out the accumulated charge and the ball doesn't connect. Even Hakari admits that was some BS. Hakari kicks it up a notch considering that his jackpot is almost over, and actually gets the upper hand, but Kashimo had another charge stored in his staff. When he discharges the electricity, it goes right through Hakari, just as his jackpot ends. In a last-ditch attempt to live, he expands his domain again, but like Kashimo said, the next domain doesn't guarantee a jackpot, resulting in Kashimo receiving the dub. Well, at least that would be the case. Was it enough for Hakari instantly getting another jackpot for reasons I don't even know? This explanation given, pause the video if you want to decipher the rules, but I'm moving on. Anyway, Hakari moved his domain over the ocean, which was a smart move considering that Kashimo's CE is basically electricity. He manages to delay falling in, but eventually Hakari makes him wet anyway, and Kashimo risks losing all of his cursed energy. It looks like game over for Kashimo, but given the random BS that has happened all fight, it's no surprise that Kashimo somehow has the knowledge needed to create chlorine gas by electrifying salt water. Yeah, this fight is wild. Kashimo believes that poison cannot be as easily healed by Hakari's automatic RCT. But Hakari opens his eyes after easily being healed by his automatic RCT. And at the final moments of his jackpot, when both of these psychos go in for their last flurry, the best quotes from the entire series are spoken.
Blabble ball.
Blue Barber.
And the chapter ends with Kashimo blowing a huge load. Next chapter, we see that Hakari's arm has been blown off and we cut to Kashimo climbing out of the water. So surely he has won, right? Yeah, of course not. Hakari and Kashimo sit down to talk and we learn that this savage wasn't even using his technique, because as he explains it, he can only use it one time and he wants to use it against Sukuna. They make a deal so that Kashimo's wish can come true, Kashimo joins the gang, and after 5 chapters this action-packed fight is over. Kashimo instantly became one of the most hyped up characters in the fandom. Sure, technically he lost the fight, but then again he faced some bullshit. And despite Hakari being the equivalent of a walking cheat code, Kashimo still went toe to toe with him. But all that didn't matter, because this was one of, if not the most fun fight of the series. Given that one day he'll meet Sukuna, the fanbase eagerly awaited his next return, but we never expected that it would be another 47 chapters before we saw him back in action again. A lot of things happened during the span, but here are the main bullet points. Tsumiki turns out to be a reincarnated sorcerer just like Kashimo, and because Megumi is down, Sukuna takes his opportunity to finally use Enchain. Kenjaku captures Tenjin so he's good as ready for his master plan. And finally the gang recruits Hana, a sorcerer from the culling game, who frees Gojo by nullifying the Prism Run technique. Finally Gojo is back, in black, and he and Sukuna have a showdown for the ages. Okay, back to Kashimo. During the whole fight, Kashimo gives off the aura of someone who knows something that we don't. And while the gang was shitting bricks and Yuta was ready to flee back to Africa, my man just confidently stood there. Multiple domain expansions, high skill destruction, brain damage, nothing could waver Kashimo. During all this, seemingly out of nowhere, Kashimo propaganda was rising at a rapid rate. Sure, some get PTSD when I showed this picture. Yeah, the fanbase could sense it, that the fight between Kashimo and Sukuna was near. And one thing was certain, you were not ready.
Don't come back when Kashimo's cursed technique is godlike strong. Don't come back when it's lightning god Indra CT, don't come back when he's actually keeping up and giving Sukuna a high difference hard fight. Stay on that side.
Kashimo's stocks were at an all-time high, and the propaganda was even spreading to subreddits that have nothing to do with JJK. But finally, Gojo wins, but then he doesn't, and zooming through the sky, after months of inactivity, Kashimo, the lightning god, finally got his fight against Sukuna. Before I begin, a little side note. Gege, the other JJK, was done with the series at this point. The story was moving at an insane pace and apparently wanted to make an idol manga. The consequences being that story teams randomly took over the entire narrative without any build-up. So when Kashimo was finally face to face with Sukuna, we learned that apparently he wants to fight him now because Kashimo wants to learn how to love people who are weaker than him. Yeah, like I said, this team came completely out of nowhere one day and has been the motivation for both Gojo and Kashimo since. But anyway, that doesn't matter, because finally the fight is here. Kashimo starts so strong and actually has Sukuna on the back foot. He wastes no time to unleash his CT, Mythic Beast Amber. He becomes a vacuum cleaner and blows Sukuna. When we cut back to Kashimo, his transformation is complete. He has become one with electricity. And we learn that he can only use his CT once because he will die when his technique is over. He absolutely bullies Sukuna for a while and finally blows his load on him, forcing Sukuna to transform to his real form, managing something Gojo couldn't even do. Wait, did Megami just fucking die? Anyway, the chapter ends and Kashimo is promising to deliver an all-time great fight, once again. Next chapter starts with Kashimo glazing Sukuna, calling him beautiful after looking at his body with X-ray vision. Yeah, it's weird, but it doesn't matter because they immediately go at each other again. Sukuna, now in his true form, wins the first exchange, but Kashimo is immediately back for more. He dodges the attack that killed Gojo, but Sukuna blinds him with his electrical baby rattler and attacks him from behind. Sukuna is now getting the better of him, but if there's one thing we know about Kashimo, it's that he'll just bounce back. So Kashimo raises his hand to counter-attack and he is fucking dead. In 2 chapters. He's even given the Jogo treatment with Sukuna flexing on him in the afterlife. A whole year of speculating on what Kashimo's part in the narrative would be, out the window. In 1 chapter, Kashimo's image of him was gone. That all confidence he had watching Gojo and Sukuna, well, I'd call it delusion. The strongest of his era? Well, that's easy when he only fought farmers. I mean, what would he have done against Sukuna's domain when he couldn't even handle his most basic attack? The ridicule was instant, and deservedly so. Some asked some good questions, like why didn't he just jump through the gaps? But the narratives of Kashimo being the waffled one and the farmer were the most rampant, with countless posts mocking this once coded character. This ridicule lasted for a few weeks but quietly died out, probably due to the fast pace of the story, and the Kashi bros were glad that their once hero had now stopped being demolished by the community. I assume most were fine letting Kashimo fade out of the spotlight, and while it was a bitter pill to swallow, they could accept Kashimo's legacy as a delusional farmer. But then something tragic happened. Lobotomy Kaisen. Gege, the author, went on a 3-week break over the holidays, and fans were losing their minds. Meet Reddit user Kyoyu, an artist who became active on a certain subreddit during these 3 weeks. It started innocently enough with this post where Kashimo gets beat up by farmers and little Kashimo being waffled by Sukuna. But the post soon took a turn for the worse when this was posted, and later this comic where Kashimo's transformation from farmer to femboy had begun. The gates had been opened. It became a challenge to the community to create the sluttiest version of Kashimo imaginable, with Kyoyu leading the search. Just so you know, most of the drawings I'm showing you were made in 1 or 2 weeks. It just wouldn't stop. And once again, the Kashi bros were down on their knees because of what their hero had become. And this concludes the tragedy surrounding Kashimo, a man once looked at as a dog, now turned femboy. Enjoy the legacy of this once hyped up character. I'm out.
Kashimo was useless? What was the point of Kashimo? We didn't even see his CT fully. How strong is he? We know he's third, but how far apart is the gap? And if Kashimo, who was the definitive third strongest maybe besides Kenjaku, who will take down Sukuna? Really bad writing decision not having Kashimo do damage now. Sukuna losing seems stupid.